Hello, everyone, and welcome to Classical Revolution here on Idagio. My name is Rachel Fenlon, and this is my weekly series in which I get the great pleasure of chatting with guests in the classical music world about what inspires them, about how they push boundaries, what thinking outside the box is in classical music. I'm really thrilled to be joined today by Icelandic composer, conductor, and producer Viktor Orri Árnason. An artist with a singular musical voice, Viktor lends his great versatility to the worlds of classical composition and studio artistry, colliding the two. He's collaborated with artists such as Ólafur Arnalds, Hilda Guðnadóttir, Jóhann Jóhannsson, and many more. And in the worlds of classical composition, contemporary music, to arrangements and writing award-winning film scores. He releases his debut solo album next June, this coming June, on the label Pentatone, and it's an album called Eilifur, which we will chat about today in the interview. So I'm super happy to welcome him. Please welcome Viktor. Hello, Viktor.
Hi, hi. Lovely being here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Viktor, I'd love to begin by asking you what your introductions to music were and whether there are any sort of particular musical memories that jump out to you as really important.
Yeah, good question. I started playing around with music probably already when I was 4 or 5 years old. My father was is a musician himself. He's a choir conductor. He actually conducts on the album his choir, Fóstbræður, Karlakorin Fóstbræður, and yeah. So we, myself and the siblings, we were all quite much around music, visiting his concerts, getting to hear the choir and playing together. So yeah, I tried out playing the recorder as a child before turning to violin, and later studied some piano, and already at that age, when I'm like 11, I started creating rock bands, punk and rock bands. Yeah, which I started with one band called Útrýndi, which we released 2 albums already before I was 15. We were yeah, kind of and we still are best friends, and yeah, and since then I joined the band Hjaltalín. I was 17 when I joined them, and we are still playing together. Actually just released our album recently, and yeah, so I've been doing a little bit of this and that since I was a child, and just allowing whatever comes along to grab me, and to go with it, and dive into it. And any genre is a happy place to dive into and learn from. But classical music definitely has been the kind of the main attraction, main inspiration, and so I've stayed the longest in classical music.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, when I was sort of reading about you, and it really struck me how kind of fluid your work is between genre, and how it's quite rare in our world, I would say, to sort of get to exist and inhabit all of those kind of genres and spaces. So I was definitely going to ask you about that. I mean, has it always? I mean, how do you yourself perceive genre, for example?
Oh, I try not even to think about it.
Yeah.
I really avoid putting any kind of music into a category. It's a great tool, of course, to have for people when you start presenting the music, but I definitely try to avoid putting any labels on what I'm doing, at least. Yeah, I guess that somewhat sums up the say about that.
Yeah, you can really, I can feel that in your work, at least listening to the things that I heard. And I was also curious whether you have encountered any kind of limitations, especially in the classical concert setting, you know, where you've had to, even within yourself, what's that journey been like in a way?
Yeah, I mean, limitations are all over the place, I guess, and there's if you decide to go the similar road to what I've chosen, to allow everything to inspire you and go into that, you also kind of have to accept that you're not going to master one of those. I look at myself as a fairly good violinist, but I'm not, I wouldn't dare to put myself in the category of somebody who dedicates their life to the violin, and so it's very helpful to to push yourself to see what the limitations are, and also allow different things to inspire the journey, and so yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, in a good way, I guess.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, something like also particularly unique about your position is that you're doing a lot of film music and TV music as well, and you've contributed to scores, even like The Joker and this award-winning show Broadchurch, for example. And I was curious to ask you about your work in film. And I mean, so my first question would be, how do you perceive the role of music as a composer within film? I mean, how do you define the power of music within film, for example?
I mean, film is a very powerful tool, and to be a part of creating a score is wonderful. To be clear, I've always been a collaborator to the composer who is the composer of the score. So my job has been to help the composer get their vision, deliver their vision, basically. So I'm very lucky to have been part of some wonderful projects in film, and I'm lucky to be trusted to go, to have different, to come from different directions into those scores, to both orchestrating, playing the violin, viola, and conducting as well, and so that's been just an amazing pleasure to get to do, and that's where also you have to know what your limitations are at the same time, and when I play the violin, I guess I found a space within I'm comfortable in, and I can master a specific way of playing it, and so I've grabbed the attention of those composers that want that sound, and so yeah, I'm very I'm very pleased to have had the opportunity to get to to work with such fantastic composers, and you know, that has definitely inspired the way I write today. Because they all approach the music writing and you know, in such different ways that you know, and that's what I love about collaborating with people, is to get to know, you know, how, from what perspective are they coming, how do they approach writing, how do they approach you know, dealing with emotions and scenes, and to help them get their way. But at the same time, I look forward to having my first score, you know. So I'm definitely, that's what I'd love to do, for sure. I'd love to write as well some film music, for sure.
Oh, okay, it's interesting. I mean, I guess you would feel in a way so close to so many different composers' styles if you're working with them in such an integrated way, and you're maybe arranging something for them and you get to know them in a really different way as well. This kind of collaboration. Yeah. And so in terms of your own music, which is, it's a very like a multi-layered feeling to your music. I was listening to the single that you've released for your new album, and it's gorgeous and it's really powerful. And I mean, I had some questions for you about that. I mean, I get the feeling like that there's a lot of texture in your work, and I was wondering if I could ask you about that, and how does that manifest in your music? Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, textures is kind of what I've felt for a long time. You know, I used to look at textural writings as my you know, mini compositions, and you know, on this album, on this track, that's true. It is a, you know, it's layered orchestras and choir, and I kind of you know, I wanted it to have a kind of a, yeah, let's say I'm always trying to search for something unique, and also something that speaks to what the album is about. It has a lot to do with you know, where we're going in the future, and how we perceive time, and you know, and regarding time, I wanted to reflect that in most of these compositions, and so some of the techniques I used is actually to manipulate the orchestra after I recorded it, and I slow it down, or and then so one of the orchestras is maybe playing in the original tempo, and another is playing faster, and then I slow it down, and so you can kind of get this very, you know, strange but beautiful vibe from the vastness of the orchestras coming together, basically.
Yeah, I was definitely curious because there's so many layers happening. I was wondering how that was happening in that particular piece.
Yeah, no, it's you know, it was a major project for me. It was all, you know, I wanted my first release to be something that I'm very proud of, and you know, and at the same time to have a simple message, but what, you know, what makes it, what the complications behind it is definitely you know, how I went ahead and recorded, and you know, what I did to achieve those sounds, and layering orchestras just to have more control over, you know, what sounds I'm going for, is definitely a major contributor to the result. Yeah.
Maybe you could also, just for our audience, because I found this so fascinating, like the actual vision of the album, which is exploring, I mean, exploring what life will be like in the absence of death's ticking clock, which I thought was. Maybe you can talk about where that inspiration for that came from.
Yeah, well, I've kind of been obsessed with that idea for a long time now, actually. You know, I really like I really like looking at the future and ask myself where am I in 10 years, or you know, even, you know, in order to push myself to become better at what I do, I say to myself, in 10 years I'm going to be good at this, and then I, you know, and then 10 years later I say that again to myself, just to, you know, keep pushing me that direction. And but on this, you know, that at the same time, the album is definitely about this, that some of our you know, some of our future predictors, people that actually, you know, dedicate their lives into predicting what the future is like, they say that that we're looking at in, you know, this century to achieve something, you know, amazing when it comes to medical achievements, and that we might learn how to regenerate ourselves, and, you know, and live as long as we want. And, you know, that just that sentence kind of has stuck with me for, you know, I guess 10 years. You know, just thinking you know, what does that actually mean? Because you know, am I gonna be am I you know, am I the first generation to be part of that generation that gets to choose how long I want to live, or is it my sons, or you know, my son's generation? And so it kind of, so the text of the choir pieces is about this, is kind of, or like, you know, it goes, it's kind of casual conversation that I imagined having with my sons, about, you know, once we get there, we get to decide how long we're going to live. Is, you know, we have immense challenges, and for us as humanity, just to you know, ask ourselves what is our purpose, and you know, what do we want to do with our lives if we, you know, if we get to live as long as we want. So I mean, you know, we never know when this is going to happen, but it kind of blows my mind if somebody is saying it could very well happen in this century. So that's kind of the sparkle of the entire album.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it poses, in a way, endless questions. So I can imagine that musically it's kind of very vast.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's too complex to even address, and which is why I went with, you know, kind of simplifying it a bit. I guess if things get so complicated, and or like, let's say, if things get in a way where you know, even now politicians are talking about the possibility of technology automating away jobs, and so we're looking at some difficulties as well, where people, you know, will be losing their jobs, and you know, and moving further into the future, where we then also will get to live as long as we want, you know, unless we yeah, you know, unless somebody you know, kills us or something. But yeah, so it's kind of a it's a big question that has stayed with me now for 10 years, and kind of and it kind of has brought me to you know, that it just means that it gets more and more important to think about the simple things, you know, to actually enjoy where you are right now, you know, and allow the sky to inspire you. You know, just allow the sunrise to actually have something, have an effect on you. And it's kind of you know, I notice this myself very often. Is, you know, if I'm in Berlin for 2 months, I start taking it for granted that I'm in Berlin. And then I start wanting to go back to Iceland. And then I'm in Iceland for 2 months and I say, well, I look forward to being in Berlin. And, you know, this kind of constant will of wanting to be somewhere else than you are. And not this, you know, so it has to be about being okay with yourself where you are in the moment, and allow things to emotionally drive you wherever you are, you know, to allow things to be beautiful and inspire you. So that's how I simplified the whole kind of
yeah, right. The massive beast of the questions.
Yes, it's like when you, things will get so complicated that it has to be that we have to simplify everything. And that's kind of where I'm going with the lyrics. Yeah.
And where did you draw the lyrics from? What texts did you write the texts, or?
I wrote it myself. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, amazing.
I was for a long time I was actually very, very shy about showing anybody that that I, you know, that what it's about. I had immense difficulties just kind of explaining what it's about, and I didn't even want to. And even the singer who sung it, the solo voice, Benedict Christiansen, amazing tenor singer.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I was kind of, I know he cares so much about lyrics, and I remember you know, being kind of afraid of showing him the lyrics.
Yeah.
And but it turned into a wonderful conversation, and where, you know, he actually loved how abstract it was, and it allowed him to take a meaning of it, you know, for himself. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you get to join this, you know, very small group of composer poets, you know, like Messiaen, and
Yeah.
there's just they're the small, but it's amazing. I mean, I love the text of Messiaen, for example, and all of his work. Again, it's very abstract, but it's perfect, like, because he had the exact color of the vowel that he wanted, or the consonant. I mean, it's all musical.
Interesting. I didn't even know he wrote his text, his lyrics.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna check it out. I'm just such a huge fan of
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, for his 2 major song cycles, he wrote the text, and that's why some of them are really wild, and then some of them are just so beautiful. They also stand alone as just mini fragment poems in a way.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. But very interesting. Wonderful. I'm looking forward to hearing this album when it comes out, I think.
Yes, it's gonna be exciting. I can't wait for people to listen to it. So,
I would love to circle back to one thing that you were kind of talking about, this idea of technology advancing, and one of my questions I wanted to ask you, I think it's particularly interesting to hear a composer's opinion about, you know, how music exists in a digital landscape, or a world that becomes more and more virtual. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, if that's something you think about, especially in a time like right now, and how, you know, how we're evolving, or how we might evolve more in this landscape.
Good question. I mean, I know already that you know, there are applications in place that allow you to create music just by, you know, telling what notes you want to do, you know, to use, and what maybe 1 chord or 2 chords, and then it creates music for you. And so more and more applications will will do that. And I think even some some computer companies are implementing this already. Not needing a composer anymore. So it's I don't know. It's a difficult thought. But at the same time, I mean, that's just what it is. And I guess it just makes us composers have to appeal more to human beings, because we're going to be competing with computers, more and more.
Do you mean like AI, for example?
Yeah,
or?
that's right. There are already AI applications out there that can create a 3-minute track for you in an instance.
Wow.
Yeah, just like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can say I want these 3-4 notes to be used, and these rhythm patterns or something. Sometimes you don't have to do anything, but to say 2-3 notes, and you just press a button and it creates a 3-minute track for you. But it's also kind of limited to what that if that inspires anyone, or if that does something for you. So, and I think also just knowing that it's an AI, it makes it automatically less interesting for human beings, I guess. So
I guess that's the question, isn't it? Yeah.
That's also the big question. I mean, it's going to be so good in 10 years or 15 years that it's going to be writing as well as any composer. That's a very, very big question. But it's not that I'm definitely not too scared of that. But it definitely does raise the bar, I guess, for us composers having to do more, I guess. I don't know, like, you never know what goes. Yeah. I mean, because we never know when they will actually also have sensitivity for dynamics and stuff like that.
Right.
That actually,
or even like imperfections. I feel like
imperfections are so important as well. That's right. Yeah. But at the same time, like, there's so much music out there already that is kind of has a kind of a perfect sound, so I guess that's the music that the AI will be challenging the most. But I don't even want to think about this, to be honest. I'm aware of this. I have been aware of it for a while, but I'm just not that interested in that.
Yeah,
to be
of
honest.
course. Yeah. I mean, I had a couple of other questions. I mean, one of the things I was thinking about today to ask you would be, who were some of the influential and inspiring composers for you? Whose language do you feel like you really responded to, and did that change over the years for you?
Yeah, I would say Stravinsky and Bartók were the first to really blow my mind, and I just laid over their scores, absolutely obsessed with every detail, listening to all of their pieces on repeat, and looking over their scores, and yeah, and later I got obsessed with Ligeti and Gerard Grisey.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yes,
he's Canadian as well.
Is he French Canadian then?
Yeah, he's French Canadian. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. So I thought it was only French, but yeah. So he
French Canadian.
Yeah, I'm not
Maybe
sure.
I'm wrong. Actually.
I thought he was only French, but his pieces just completely blew my mind, and they have inspired mostly what I do when it comes to more modern kind of writing. When I when I want to experiment, I automatically go into the spectral area.
Okay.
I really am fascinated about going further that direction that he was taking it. I almost see his music as an invitation to a much bigger world for spectral music, and so I'm kind of, and it's very difficult to do that right. It's he writes specifically for the Overtone series, but he does it kind of brilliantly. He doesn't expect too much of the players. They have their tones to play, but I've tried to write this way, but also have it develop between harmonic series, and that easily and quickly becomes a disaster. So I'm still experimenting with that, and I'd love to find a simpler way to deliver it. Yeah, so that these I guess these are the four that completely overtook everything. All my interest went into them, but of course also some when it comes to orchestrating, I was very fascinated by Ravel and Holst and
Holst, interesting.
and Wagner and Strauss. Went much into them as well. Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, when you mention, especially when you mention Bartók and Ligeti and Stravinsky, they also all did like music theater. Is that something you ever think about doing, or could you imagine, a theatrical aspect with
absolutely, absolutely. I am, I kind of just try to grab everything that fuels my interest, in a sense, where I get to learn more, and I see theater as a way to learn from that format, and have to that's that. In a theater and in film, you always have this dialogue with the director, and in film also the producers have something to say, and so it's a very different thing than writing your own score entirely, because you're always in a dialogue. So, but it's also a lovely thing. It's kind of a very effective way of getting good feedback, and from people that are honest from their perspective. But so I wouldn't say I want to become a film composer, like only, but I'm so excited to do that as well as theater and also writing for orchestras. That's where that's where I really love exploring the most is write for orchestra.
Well, it kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning, which stuck with me, which is like this idea that you don't have to, and this gets imposed on us a lot in the classical world, but you don't have to really master everything in a way. I mean, of course you do, you definitely do, but this is, that allows a lot more flexibility, I guess, in this sense.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I don't feel I have mastered anything yet. So, but I'm also happy where I am with that. I really and I am not as sensitive with my flaws as I was as a teenager or something. So I embrace that. Yeah, I guess that, something like that.
No, it just made me think about that, because in this sense, then you can really inhabit a lot of different spaces with that kind of attitude, and have that kind of flexibility, which you must need. So yeah. Viktor, it's just been so lovely to chat with you. Thank you for taking time and speaking to us from Iceland,
Thank you, Rachel. It was wonderful chatting.
Yeah, I would love to ask you my kind of last final question, which I
Yes.
ask all my guests, which is, how do you feel music can be revolutionary?
Ooh. Wow. Wow, revolutionary. I guess I'd have to go to what I know, or like what I feel makes sense to me is like when a composer manages to do something that just completely blows your mind. That's it's an individual experience, I would say, to what is revolutionary for you, if there's enough people that experience that as revolutionary, I guess then a revolution happens automatically. Yeah, I mean, to me, it was revolutionary to listen to Stravinsky's pieces, and getting obsessed with that. It kind of revolutionized everything that I think of when I approach music. But I think it would have to be enough people to experience something as revolutionary to them. But it's a very difficult question, because what has a revolution ever happened in a way that it has inspired a mass of people to do something that changes the world? That could happen. And do you know of any examples?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think I myself would define it in a similar way to you, which is that it's very personal. And I suppose if we look on a bigger scale, then it becomes about collective listening from music, I think. And this, of course, that it brings everything inward,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. It's I mean, it has to be something that just completely blows some person's mind.
Yeah,
exactly. That has them, that creates a drive in them to want to do something with that.
Yeah.
And that has happened multiple times to myself. So I guess I would say that's a revolution to me when music manages to completely, drive me mad, wanting to do more music. So, yeah.
Beautiful. That's a great answer. Well, Viktor, thank you so much again for this chat.
Lovely chat.
Yes, and all the best to you, and good luck for the album release, and I'll be listening to it.
Thank you very much.